Okay, here we go. It's been a long time since I've done a podcast. I know I've got thousands and thousands of loyal listeners that have been anxiously waiting. Well, actually, I've got three, maybe. But anyway, sorry, but me being the jet-setting entrepreneur, rock star kind of guy that I am, I haven't really had time to do one. So that's what I'm going to do today, September 30th, 2018. Is my new podcast. Real quick, I got to get the sponsors out of the way because that's what us cool podcast people have to do. We have to pay the bills. So I have to acknowledge my sponsors. And of course, obviously, I don't really have any sponsors. I just talk about a couple of things that I actually use. All right, the first sponsor. This show is sponsored by Crest Pro Health Advanced Anti-Cavity Fluoride Mouthwash. Yes, boys and girls, this is what I use with extra deep clean. It's blue. It looks like windshield washer fluid. But I use this every day. And I know for a fact that when people are around me, if they pass me on the street, if they're having a conversation with me, they may not say it, but they are thinking, look at this guy's mouth. Holy shit. This guy's mouth is incredible. So anyway, Crest Pro Health Advanced Anti-Cavity Fluoride Mouthwash. Also, last night, for the first time in a while, I go to Kroger like constantly, but I hadn't bought any Ken's Ranch dressing. Bought some Ken's Ranch dressing. I mean, it's not just any regular ranch dressing. I love any ranch dressing for the most part, but none quite like Ken's. I don't know who Ken is. He makes a hell of a ranch dressing. I put this stuff, obviously, on salads, wings, hamburgers, cereal, everything. Ken's ranch dressing. All right, that's it for the sponsors. I'm going to talk today about something near and dear to me, and that's my favorite books. Now, I've already done one podcast. I know everyone remembers that monumental one about the bookstore, the demise of it, the slow demise of it, and how much I love bookstores. But the reason I love bookstores, there's a lot of reasons, but it's because they have books. And bookstores are just, it's like a kid in a candy store thing for me, or even a library, you know. Not because I'm any kind of literary, I just love to read. I really do. I love to read in the morning, a little bit at night. Yeah, that's another thing. Who cares? Books. I'm going to talk about there's so many. It's like trying to pick between your kids. I mean, I just got one kid, so I don't really know what that's like. But I'm going to talk about, I guess, 5 books that would, I hate to say life-changing, but in some ways they are and were. So, yeah. And it's no particular order. And some are more recent. Some I read so many years ago, and I reread them constantly. So, here we go. The first one, like I said, it's no particular order. This book was written by Mark Manson. Mark Manson. I don't think he's related to Marilyn. Mark Manson. Relatively young author. I don't know. Late 30s maybe. I mean, whatever. He's written a few books, but The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Just the title, man, is a reason to buy it. But the content is incredible. It's a quick read. It's not that long of a book. It is, I've described it to friends as self-help for the cynical soul, or chicken soup for the nihilistic soul. I don't know. It's a very positive, optimistic book without being the typical sunshine, rainbows, Pollyanna, your lollipops and candy, whatever the fuck you know what I'm saying. It's a real interesting take on life and not giving a fuck. His heroes are very nihilistic. He's very influenced by Charles Bukowski, people of that nature. He uses great terms, like he talks about how his adolescence, his life as a teenager, sucked donkey balls. I love Dale Carnegie and Tony Robbins, but they've never really described anything as like sucking donkey balls. I like that. That's how I talk. Once again, Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. There's so many things to say about this book, but that's it in a nutshell. The Tao of Wu by the RZA. For those of you that don't know who the RZA is, he is the mastermind, lyricist, and the music guru behind the Wu-Tang Clan. I'm a big fan of that group, but it's so goes way beyond that. He wrote a book called The Tao of Wu. A lot of his philosophies, a lot of his influences, gets into religion a little bit. He's obviously, because the Wu-Tang Clan, their music displayed this. He's very influenced by kung fu movies, horror movies, and obviously old school hip hop. Never been any group like the Wu-Tang Clan. I like a lot of different music, mostly rock, some country, alternative, some hip hop, but it's got to be like the best hip hop, and to me they're one of the best groups ever. The RZA, he doesn't really get enough credit, in my opinion. You talk about Dr. Dre, Eminem, people like that, Kanye, rightly so. You don't hear about the RZA as much, I don't think. I think he's right up there with those guys. Okay, this is also, I'm a big music fan, so a couple of these are music related, obviously. The autobiography of Keith Richards, called Life. In 2010, Keith Richards put out a 500-page or so book entitled Life, a memoir, and driving a convertible down the sidewalk with your hair on fire would not be the adventure of reading this fucking book. It's incredible. And this falls into the category, you wouldn't even have to be a fan of the Rolling Stones, which I am, to enjoy this book. But it was right up my alley, of course. He's been a hero of mine for a long time. And, it's like, well, okay, your hero is a drug-taking, alcohol, whatever, chain smoking. Yeah, kind of, because he defies logic. He defies logic. He's a he's a very intelligent guy. But, you're also talking about a guy that in the 80s, he pulled a knife on Donald Trump. When he was 63 years old, he was climbing a tree to get a coconut, fell and cracked his skull. Had to get brain surgery. 6 weeks later, he's playing on stage. Talking about a guy that in 2007 snorted his dead dad's ashes. Talking about a guy that at one time, maybe back in the 70s, I think it was, he set the original Playboy Mansion on fire. Yeah, the one in Chicago. He set it on fire. Hugh Hefner actually relocated to Los Angeles after that. I don't care if you're a gangster rapper or if you're some, hair metal, Motley Crue supposed badass, or if you're a devil worshiping rock band that gets up every morning and drinks goat's blood, you ain't got nothing on Keith Richards. Anyway, awesome book. There's one entitled "You Are a Badass" by a lady named Jen Sincero. She's written a couple of books. This is my favorite by far. Everything she does is good. Incredible book. She's funny. Jen Sincero is funny. And you know I like funny. I don't even know really for sure what she looks like, but she's very attractive just for the fact that she's funny as hell. Sarcastic, witty. But it's a great book that basically it's self-help, but once again, kind of like the Mark Manson, it's not like, corny Pollyanna stuff. Very realistic, somewhat cynical, hilarious. And what I like about it is it talks about how really anybody can be a badass. Badass does not mean some bar brawling biker dude. It doesn't have to mean some, some violent, chest thumping, macho kind of person. You could be a 90-pound single mother of 3 kids working 2 jobs. That's a badass. But it's an incredible book. I can't recommend it enough. I've read it multiple times. And I'll mention this one. I'd be remiss not to mention this book right here, written by Alan Carr, simply entitled "The Easy Way to Quit Drinking." It's just that. Now, not to get into this, that's a whole different rabbit hole, but for a long time, had a hard time with alcohol. Didn't think I could ever stop. This was the blueprint for quitting. Now there was a few other books involved with that too. This was the first one. Very simple, very plain spoken. If someone decided that they knew for sure they wanted to quit drinking, they need to read this book. He even recommends the author, when you're reading the book, don't quit drinking yet. Just continue to do whatever while you're reading the book. That's what I did. I'd crack open beers and read this book. And it took a few readings. It was a long process, but it's a fantastic book. And like I said, this book, along with a few others, are, I didn't do the AA thing or whatever. That's fine for a lot of people, and it's great, but it's not the path that I took. This book is really, when it comes down to one book, it's the one that led me to quit drinking. So anyway, there's that. Those are all books that fall into the nonfiction. There's so many more. That's just kind of honorable mentions would be Wayne Dyer. He writes some really great stuff. Brian Tracy, people of that nature. Some other people recently have put out some great stuff. But these are ones that I've had in my collection. I've read them all multiple times. I don't read as much fiction. I do read some, but not as much as the nonfiction. Whether it's something, for lack of a better way of putting it, self-help or biographies, that's what I read most of. But just a few fiction books I've read, honorable mentions, but a guy named Donald Ray Pollitt, he's written a few books, one in particular called Knock 'em Stiff. Now, it's not for everybody, folks. If you ever drove down a country road, for example, and you looked over and you saw this kind of weird, jacked up looking house, kind of creepy looking, you think, what goes on in that house? That's Donald Ray Pollock's style of writing, and that's his kind of stuff. It's Knock 'em Stiff is the book my favorite from him, about a town called Knock 'em Stiff, Ohio, real place. But there's I don't know how many. I don't have the book anymore. I need to get another copy. But 15 short stories in the book. Every chapter is a different story.